Advanced canola trait technology is here. And it's soon to be the talk of the town. Optimum Glide delivers excellent yield potential and agronomic trait performance. Improved crop safety. Enhanced weed control. And a wider window of application. You're going to want to see this. Learn more at OptimumGlide.ca.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Thursday edition of the show. Hey, thanks so much, everybody, for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. And a big shout out to everybody also listening to the RealAg Radio podcast. Well, it's Thursday, which means it's the Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. You know Pioneer Seeds. For more than 90 years, Pioneer has developed and tested products to meet your local challenges. With new Z-Series soybeans, new Optimum Glide canola, top-performing corn products, and industry-leading traits and technologies to maximize your yield potential. Pioneer's on-the-ground teams can help you get the right products for your fields. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more. That's pioneer.com/Canada. Well, our roster, our lineup here of farmers today it's a great one. We got Mark Huston coming out of Chatam-Kent, Ontario. Aaron Bowman is out of Hampton, Ontario. Tyler Bartmanovich is out of McDonald, Manitoba. Jeff Nonay is out of Edmonton. And this week's Pioneer Area Agronomist is Jenna Gregoire out of Northwest Saskatchewan. If you have any feedback on today's program, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the Real Ag Feedback line, 855-776-6147. And we start off this week's Farmer Rapid Fire in Chatham-Kent, Ontario. We're talking to Mark Huston. Hey, Mark, how are you doing?
Oh, doing great. Lovely weather out here in the southwest of Chatham-Kent.
Yeah, well, what's it looking like? Like, what's the weather like this week?
Well, we're looking pretty sunny. We were a little cooler than we were last week. We had a nice warm weekend, but we had like a cold stretch 2 weeks ago. But with the crop looking like it is, we need a pretty awesome September in order to finish this thing off.
Yeah. So what's happening on the farm this week? What are you up to?
Just sitting around waiting for beans to mature, right?
but I've been hearing that that's kind of happening with relative quickness. Is that true on your farm?
For us, not so much. With the spring we had, we got the beans were in for the most part later than normal, and so when we look around, ordinarily we're sitting the first week of September, right? You're normally used to seeing those soybeans start to change color in the leaves, maybe have a few varieties dropping. And this year, they're really dark green still, and the beans aren't quite drying out yet. They're still kind of at a edamame stage, right, where you can kind of pop them off, and they still hold into the pod a little bit.
So how would you describe this year's crop on corn and beans? What are you seeing out the window?
It has been bizarre.
Bizarre.
We went through, it's been a crazy year. We started off the spring. Corn went in, relatively on time, went in pretty decent. And then we got, the first couple days of beans in, and they looked not too bad. And then the taps opened up for us, and it just rained and rained and rained. And then, so we finally got back to planting, 2 or 3 weeks later. And then as soon as you get the beans planted, within a day or two, you get another 3 inches of rain. And so that happened 3 times for us in some of the fields. So we've got beans that weren't planted until, the start of July. And then even then there's still holes in the field because the water's sitting around and ponding. Now we're kind of in a little bit of a cursed pathway, I think, for that's starting in spring. Not everywhere was that bad, but the spots that were bad, they just didn't improve until you got kind of into that middle of August time frame. And then you saw the heat come up, and it kind of pushed things through a little bit. But I think we also saw some late rain in August. And so, like, the corn crop looks like it's going to be all right. Ear size looks like it's down a little bit from other years, based on some of those wet spots being too wet for too long. Soybeans look like I'm hoping for average. Zeros on acres tends to bring the average down a little bit. But talking to some of the vegetable guys around here, you know, the tomato harvest is going full swing. It started a little bit earlier than normal because of the heat we had in August. But with all the rain that we had, disease pressures were up. So I don't even think they're going to be, you know, thrilled with the crop they get. But we've got a good solid market taking a beating right now, and good crop in the Midwest. And I think in other parts of Ontario where they kind of avoided some of those rains, they look pretty decent too when you go for a road trip.
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask you, like, next week it's outdoor farm show already, and I was just curious what you think we're going to hear from a lot of the growers in attendance. Are we going to hear, like, dissatisfaction? Are we going to hear, well, it's not as bad as it could have been, it's really good, it's really bad? What do you think the overall sentiment's going to be as we talk about some of these crops?
I think it's going to come down to a lot of what guys did for their marketing plans, right? If they were pretty diligent and got some of those crops marketed early and avoided some of those rains, there's a potential here for a pretty solid crop. I mean, we're looking at some of the early estimates on the yield are looking at that high, slightly above average yield, right? The commodity prices have slid back a bit if you weren't quite as diligent as you could have been on your marketing decisions. But historically, we're still at pretty high levels despite, you know, where we are.
Are you already looking at booking some 25 crop at all, or are you just trying to worry about 24?
Yeah, not like we'll market some of the grain we've got in storage. We haven't pulled the trigger on any kind of harvest bids for 2025 yet. It's tough with the market looking like it is, right? It's always that catch-22 of, you know, the price is better than it could be, but it's not nearly as good as it was, right? And so those are the decisions I think most farmers really hate having to make, but those are the ones that make people money. We haven't made that money maker yet, so.
Yeah,
we're still hoping for a turnaround in the markets.
Did you have wheat?
Yeah, a little bit of wheat.
How did it go?
Crop was good quality, good yield. So it was it ended up being not too bad a crop. So
will your acres be same, up or down for a fall year?
Way down on wheat, just based on the maturity of the soybeans. So historically, we'll put the wheat on some of the earlier maturing soybean grounds, but those were the fields that got planted the last this year. So our more clay heavy ground that we would normally put the wheat on, it's a long way away from being ready to harvest. And so that puts us back to the point where trying to establish that wheat crop gets a little more finicky than we'd like. And
Wheat Pete's not going to be happy with you.
Well, I think he's definitely not going to be thrilled. But, you know, if there's areas around the province that avoided those rains and got some beans in early, you know, there's not a lot of reason not to put a little bit in. But yeah, around our neighborhood, I think it's going to be tough to get the wheat acres in that most guys want to get in. You know,
that makes sense.
The livestock guys that have some straw, they want to get some straw baled, but it could be one of those years when it's going to be a little pricier to try and buy some straw.
Makes sense. Were you able to get away at all this summer?
Just, you know, the joy of having children in sports, right? So you get to go to baseball tournaments, but trying to stretch away much from that, it makes it a little tough. So we got to see some baseball games and some, we'll say, near distant towns, but nothing too extravagant.
The odd trip to Michigan for a tournament or what?
No, we don't get to cross the border too much. It's mostly southwestern Ontario, visiting the kind of that central area of Ontario. Maybe journey up to Toronto for a baseball game or two, but We're lucky.
I can't remember. Are you Tigers or Blue Jays?
I'm a Blue Jays guy.
Whoa, you're in enemy territory there in Chatham.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like 50-50, right?
Is it really? Okay.
So it's bizarre because, like, depending on your age, you either grew up with having a really good Tigers team or you grew up having a really good Blue Jays team. And there's not a whole lot of overlap between the two. And so if you grew up like in the early 80s, like the Tigers were awesome. And so you fell in love with the Tigers there. You grew up in the early 90s, it was the other way around. So I grew up around in the early 90s, so I got hooked on the Blue Jays. But if the Tigers are playing anybody, I want them to win, as long as it's not the Jays, right?
Have you, and it sounded like you've been to Rogers to see a few games?
Yeah, no, we got up to Rogers a couple of times this summer. And, you know, when the kids like doing it, it's a lot easier to do. And as they're getting a little bit older, they're getting a little bit more engaged. My son played rookie ball this year for the first time, and it started off a little rough, but by the end of the season, he was really keen on playing baseball. So
yeah,
try and keep that love there as much as you can, right?
I know how this goes for you, where it's sort of like when the kids take up golf, right? It's like, oh, geez, you know, I guess I'll go golfing on Saturday. The kids want to do it. I better. Yeah.
yeah, it's tough, right?
Yeah, no, it's same with you want to go to the Blue Jays game? Oh man, yeah, I guess I better. Yeah, I suppose I should. Yeah, okay, Dad'll take you. Yeah, this is hard.
We structured it for birthdays, so my wife and my son shared the same birthday, and so it was George Springer giveaway day that day for the hockey jerseys.
Oh, that was a popular one. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got there nice and early and got our 5 jerseys for the family. 3 of which won't fit the kids, so I've got lots of extras now.
Well, the one thing you won't be doing during soybean harvest in the combine is listening to Blue Jay playoff games. So you've saved yourself from that, but the disappointment of the Leafs will just beginning. So, hey, Mark, have yourself a great harvest here, and if you make it down to the farm show, say hello to Byrne, who'll be on location there. So all the best to you, okay?
Cheers. Thanks, Shaun.
Okay, we'll be right back on RealAg Radio for the rest of the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Farmers Edge Laboratories is here to support growers, agronomists, and retailers this harvest season with their soil testing. Experience superior customer service, fast results, and volume discounts with Farmers Edge Laboratories. Contact 204-233-4099, 204-233-4099, or email fe.labs@farmersedge.ca. The lab is now open to the public, agronomists, and retailers across Canada. Farmers Edge Laboratories, proudly serving Canadian agriculture for over 15 years.
We're at the Canadian Beef Industry Conference. Today's show is brought to you by Canada Beef. Make sure you check out canadabeef.ca. The new campaign, Pick the Beef with the Leaf. We are joined right now by the president of Canada Beef. It is Eric Bienview. What is the true role of Canada Beef in the sector?
Essentially, 2 sentences. Create value. For whom? Our producer and the entire value chain of the beef industry. Our goal is to make beef the protein of choice. That's it. How do we do it? Consumer marketing, channel marketing, global marketing, intel, research and development on nutrition, health, as well as the underutilized cuts to enhance the consumption. We have 300 cuts of beef. So what do? We're trying to optimize and increase value. Stakeholder communication, and drive growth.
And we keep rolling with the Farmer Rapid Fire. Let's drop into Hampton, Ontario. We're talking to Aaron Bowman. Aaron, how are we making out today?
Very good. Yourself?
Well, I'm pretty good. What's going on the farm this week?
Well, I just unloaded a transport of wheat seed. Still moving the cattle around, that pasture thing, and basically kind of getting everything ready for when the next storm comes. Storm being harvest and corn silage and wheat deliveries and wheat planting. And
what do you have for livestock? You got cattle, or what do you got?
Yeah, we got cattle. We got cow-calf and finish it right into the store.
Oh, right. How has that been going?
Farm market. That's crazy. It's crazy, like crazy good. We actually I could probably say we're not keeping up, to be honest with you. The demand is big. The buy local, support local has, in COVID, it exploded, and I would say it's gone up exponential again for particular our operation.
We got another farmer that sells direct coming up later in the Farm Rapid Fire, Jeff Nonay from Edmonton. So that's kind of a coincidence. We got two of you guys on here this week. What's the biggest challenge in going direct?
The people?
The customers? Like, this would be a really easy business if I didn't have these customers?
Yeah. No, our customers are phenomenal. It's just being able to give them the time that they want, and they want to learn, and they want to know about your business. But on the flip side, you're still trying to run an operation. So I'm very fortunate. My mom and dad, for the most part, look after the entire retail side of our business. And so they can give them the time, and they do. And the customers really appreciate it. It's when, like right now, they've gone on vacation. So I'm back manning the store and trying to run the farm at the same time, and a Pioneer dealership. So. Well,
who let them take holidays right now? Did you approve that?
If I even said no or even a maybe, I think I'd be out of the corporation. So,
so it's like no choice. You just sort of you got a company-wide notice, and it's like, oh, okay, sure, yeah, I'll handle it. I got it. Don't worry about it. Were you able to get away at all this summer?
This year actually was kind of a funny year. Like, yeah, we got away. We do a lot more. Just kind of runs up to the cottage and just enjoy some shutdowns. And we're fortunate that both my parents and my wife's parents have cottages, so we usually just slip away 3-4 days. Sometimes it's just a due day thing, like an overnighter, and but it's still enough to get away and shut your brain off for a minute and not think farming.
Yeah. So what's your expectations on the corn and the beans?
It's definitely going to be a good crop. Majority of people that I deal with, we were fortunate in the spring there that Mother Nature played really nice, basically from me south to the lake. And so, yeah, it's a massive crop around me. Everywhere I look, something would really have to happen weather-wise for it not to be.
No concerns about finishing on that corn? It's going to be okay?
Yeah, like for the most part, like those who planned a little later, they might be struggling, but I've walked, I don't know how many acres now, and we're half milk line on a lot of this corn, and if the weatherman, woman, whatever, knows anything, they don't have frost in the forecast, and September 17th was my biggest concern with the new moon, and it's not there, so I think we're good till October. I don't want to jinx it for us, but I think we're smooth sailing here.
Okay. At the Outdoor Farm Show next week, I was just talking to Mark Huston. He's down in Chatam-Kent. Yep. And one of the questions I asked Mark was, okay, next week at the farm show, what do you think the commentary is going to be? What do you think the attitude is going to be from a lot of the growers that are walking around or in the beer tent?
I was going to say, I usually go to the beer tent. Probably they'll be looking at equipment. So that whole market, I think, is almost turning upside down, the used side and the new, and trying to keep that divide somewhat close. So I think that'll be a huge topic. And just the commodity prices, right? Like that's on everyone's mind. Did you lock in? Did you try to get greedy? And here we are at sub 5 corn and beans under 12 or up to 12. You know what I mean? So I think that'll be on everyone's mind, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and we've definitely had variability though too. Like I think you're right overall. Where we think the yield is today in Ontario versus where maybe people were talking in May, that we've improved. Mother Nature always has. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and there's pockets, right? Like I'm in a very nice spot here. Like Mother Nature was very, very good to us. You can go north of here, and it's a whole different story, and go towards to the west there, and they might say a whole different story than what I'm saying. Just because the weather has been very good. We've got very nice rains, timely rains, heat, pollination was in a perfect, I'll say perfect temps. And so, yeah, like right around us, it's beautiful. and Eastern Ontario, they got pounded with tons of rain. So they might be a different story.
Like, you're just outside of Oshawa, correct?
That's right. Yeah. 45 minutes east of Toronto is what I always tell people.
Yeah. So what kind of weather pattern do you get off of Lake Ontario? Because you're not too far from Lake Ontario. So what does that look like? So right where our farm is, I would say the lake doesn't play a whole big factor until winter comes. And I'll chat with buddies that are up north of me, and they were 7 degrees the other day, and we were 11, 12. And it's just, that's a big difference when you're trying to finish corn, et cetera, et cetera. And, but as you head towards the lake, it's another microclimate down there, especially Port Hope, Cobourg. When you watch the storms, they often blow off the lake, and you'll see some really nice rain down through that Port Hope, Cobourg, Grafton area. And in the winter, those lake effect snows? Yeah, our worst ones actually come off Lake Scugog, which is north of me. They pop up over the ridge, and then they we have this very, what they call it literally, the Oak Ridges Moraine, and so we'll always call it the ridges, and it's almost a microclimate as it comes up off of Lake Ontario, and so we'll actually get pounded with snow from there, where Lake Ontario actually keeps us warmer into that fall winter period. Yeah, so interesting. We were talking about livestock earlier, cattle. I know you're doing a lot of direct-to-consumer stuff, but overall, I think if you talk to anybody in the cattle industry, it's not perfect, but some economic conditions that are working in their favor, it seems, and people are feeling a lot better than they say they were 5 years ago. Yeah, for sure. You nailed it, because basically you don't send anything off farm. Like, everything goes through sends off farm, but I mean, everything goes back through our retail store. So we in this operation, we don't really feel the effect of the market, if that makes sense. You're like isolated from it, because you're basically setting your own price. Obviously there's market dynamics there, but you're not reliant on where that futures market is. No, like, we do nothing on the futures, like zero on the livestock side. Interesting. We set the price instead of, we're almost like a quota system. Yeah, well, except, okay, I hear you. We set our price, which is nice. We just don't have to buy the quota to be there. Well, that is a definite benefit with how expensive some of the quota is. That is out there. Yeah, for sure. But on the crop side, you do, right? You're growing some for silage, but you're also doing some commodity sales as well. Yeah. So all of that goes through the commodity market. The corn, the wheat, beans. Prices could be better there. Yeah, and really, again, I'm not the guy to be saying I know much, but it doesn't sound like there's a lot of bullish information coming down the pipeline anytime soon. So, yeah, I think we're in for maybe not a rough ride, but we're in for a little correction of the prices we have been getting, if that makes sense. A little bit of you mentioned equipment and things like that. The farm should be interested to see the mood there, but it's a little bit of a, tighten your belt kind of environment. Yeah, there it is. Now every input, all the different things you're doing, from fungicide to fertility to even seed itself. Yeah, everyone will be making sure that they're maximizing every dollar versus just throwing the kitchen sink at all the acres. Being smart about stuff. It's not, don't cut off your nose to spite your face, right? Like that, right? Yeah. You can't get rid of all costs, but you're definitely doing some thinking about, okay, what's the benefit here? Why am I doing this? And those are good business practices to be in. And sometimes when prices are lofty, we don't put enough thinking time into those kinds of questions, right? Because market's good, I got margin, whatever, and we're not in that environment. No, I see it all the time, where this little correction in the market, or if you want to say a little slump, where I always notice customers, the conversations around the kitchen table are a lot more, how can I be more economically sound in my production system? And that comes up every time. Yeah. Not to say that we don't want to maximize yield. It's just, how do we do that on more of a budget? Yeah, makes sense. Hey, Aaron, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire. All the best to you, okay? Anytime, buddy. Awesome stuff. That is Aaron Bowman. He is out of Hampton, Ontario. We've got more of the Farmer Rapid Fire coming up right after this quick break. You're listening to RealAg Radio, brought to you today by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Does your N stabilizer contain an active ingredient load high enough to be agronomically effective? If not, it could be costing you time and money. If you're putting down a nitrogen stabilizer, put your trust in Koch Agronomic Services. Solutions like Super U, Tribune, and Anvil. Each delivers high active ingredient concentrations that low-rate products just can't match. Compare how imitator products stack up to agronomically effective solutions at defendyourn.ca.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Advanced canola trait technology is here. And it's soon to be the talk of the town. Optimum Glide delivers excellent yield potential and agronomic trait performance. Improved crop safety. Enhanced weed control. And a wider window of application. You're going to want to see this. Learn more at OptimumGlide.ca.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire to McDonald, Manitoba, and we're talking to Tyler Bartmanovich. Tyler, how are we doing today?
It's been a busy last couple weeks, but yeah, good otherwise. Just trying to get things done, and hiccups happen, so just trying to overcome all those.
So harvest is in full swing. What's some of the adversity that you've been fighting through?
We have had a bad week for AC stuff. I had a AC compressor seize up, so blew a serpentine belt. And then that was on one combine. And then on the other combine, I had a high pressure AC line blow. So I had to go get another compressor for that one, all that. And then got all that resolved, and parts coming from Regina and stuff, just frustrating. And then go to charge up the AC in another tractor and find out that compressor is shot too. So just been a bad week for AC. But
bad timing on that. When you're sitting in when you're sitting in a combine, you know, the cab is just all windows.
All window,
yeah,
and
it's like living in a sauna.
Yeah, and you can't open the door because it's very dusty. So yeah, anyways, thankfully it was kind of a cool, cloudy day for that one time, and managed to get through that. So, yeah.
Do you ever
Other than that,
do you ever think about what it was like when they combined without cabs? How miserable that would be?
Well, when Gramps rides with me in the combine, I ask him questions like that, and yeah, he tells me stories of when they were combining where they would just set the steering wheel so it was kind of going straight while they're picking up a swath, and then he would move somewhere else on the combine to just stand up and be out of the dust. And it's just like, wow. Some of the things that they did back then, you couldn't imagine doing them now. And imagine doing that now, the sort of, I don't know, just the things people would say about that. I mean, wow, that was just a regular day back then.
Yeah, well, plus on top of it, it's not only just living in that dust, but I just think about my hay fever. I wouldn't even be able to see.
Sure.
It would just be a mess. Oh,
yeah.
man. So how from a yield standpoint, has that been decent considering your expectations, or what's going on there?
Yeah, honestly, well, I didn't have super expectations for wheat, but we had some fields do pretty well, and then we had some fields do pretty poor. And I think that's just explainable by how high the field was, because we had about 5 inches of rain in 5 days at the end of June, just when wheat was heading out, canola was flowering. And meanwhile, at the same time, the Red River was very high. So this water stuck around for about 10 days and wasn't able to drain as fast as normal because the river was very high. And we're very close to the river. We're about 4 miles from the Red River. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So things back up, and yeah, can't do anything about that. But right now, Dad and I are both out in a tractor ditching fields. So it's easy to see the holes right now because there's a lot of drowned out holes in the wheat and canola from that rain. So call it a silver lining, I guess. I know exactly where each hole is this year.
Did that heat in July beat up your canola a little bit?
I'm sure it didn't help, but I think that water stress that I was talking about at the end of June, beginning of July was worse.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to jump back quickly to the part situation, some of the breakdowns, has it been decent to get on a turnaround on some of the parts and things like that, or what's that been like?
Any breakdown we've had, I've only lost, maximum was 4 hours per breakdown. And that's just sort of the timing of when they happen during the day. So overnight parts runs to get things back in the morning and then fix things in the morning and then go. So it's just, it was just everything all at once. Overall, we didn't lose that much time. And, so we're grateful for that. But, and you know what? Our dealer was pretty good about all the things because there was that one AC line was supposed to come from Ohio. So that was, of course, on a weekend. And then you got customs involved and all that. So they robbed the AC line off of a combine that they had in the yard that wasn't sold yet. So appreciate when things like that happen where they go.
Well, and they're willing to do that kind of stuff too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So things like that make a difference.
Yeah, and I think when you look at any sort of survey data, it talks about, what are the key priorities or key characteristics of, why you choose to buy equipment and where you do. Those kinds of things come when you're in a bind. And time is money, especially at harvest time. Keeping you going, that's critical stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Because I would say having a good product is important, but having dealer support is more important. Yeah,
bit of a bad week. Not a great week when it comes to the canola markets. I really hope that we don't have a situation where, we more details to come. We've been covering it all week here, but exports to China on canola not stopped at this point, but this week's news of an investigation on anti-dumping allegations, it's not great.
It's very disheartening when all these things are out of our control and we do the best job that we can, but our government is doing things that affect us quite a bit. And to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, but Canada doesn't even have an electric or like a battery plant for building, these electric batteries for these electric cars, right? So it seems odd to be protectionist about something like that when you don't even have that industry in the first place, right?
Yeah, I think, obviously there's been a lot of subsidization of EV auto manufacturing in Ontario for sure. There is, my understanding is there's no Chinese EVs coming into Canada at this point, but there is Teslas that are made in Shanghai. It's obviously this is about union jobs, but also appeasing what the Americans are trying to do. So it's we're kind of caught in the prop wash. And I guess at the end of the day, even if canola doesn't stop moving, the price it's worth a lot. It's worth less, right? Like that. I think that is an issue.
Yeah, a 10% swing in price overnight affects your spreadsheets quite a bit. Yeah. You can't bank on that. And have been breaking even or in the black, but then it goes to red overnight because of that. Now, I know you don't have to sell it all at once, but you can't sit on crop for a couple of years until things get resolved, right?
Yeah, definitely something we're following very closely. Hey, Tyler, all the best to you during harvest. I hope some of your mechanical issues turn around here to get this crop in the bin. Really appreciate you joining us here today on RealAg Radio.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Shaun.
And we'll be back with more of the Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada right after this quick break.
Whether you're in a career within an organization, starting your own business, looking for your dream job, running your own farm operation, operating a company in ag or food, or want to hone your overall life skills, this conference is for you. Celebrating over 10 years of bringing women in ag together, join the Advancing Women Conference in Niagara Falls on November 17th, 18th, and 19th. Visit advancingwomenconference.ca for more information and to register.
Peter Johnson at WheatPeak, RealAgriculture.com. I'm the host of The Word, and I love doing The Word. I love the questions. I love the challenges. I love having to apply agronomics to all over the globe and areas outside of my normal jurisdiction. Also, I love the feedback the most, where growers challenge me, tell me about their plot results, help me to learn. The Word, absolutely the best part of my day.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, to Edmonton, Alberta. We're talking to Jeff Nonay. Jeff, how are we doing?
Pretty good. What a stretch of weather.
Yeah, what have you been experiencing?
You know, just dodging showers. A few guys maybe got a little bit of a delay. One gated north of the farm and stopped the combine, but baling and silage and, you know, everything all at once. Crops were a little bit late, but I think everybody has something kind of ready as the days roll on. And yeah, just kind of a nice, comfortable pace and really fantastic weather, kind of lake weather, really.
You seem very calm for harvest.
Because it snuck up on me. So maybe I haven't even yet realized that I'm in harvest, and we're a good, 15-20% in. But yeah, I think we were expecting it to be late, and just happy that it's early. And I don't know, trying to not stress that much. A few breakdowns here and there, and tractors that need to go in and get fixed. And I think at some point you just accept that that's part of the harvest package.
Yep, ignorance is bliss. I like it.
That is true. That is true.
Well, hey, how are the yields?
Right in our local area, and I mean like right tight to the farm. Really nice yields, quite exceptional. Hearing neighbors as well happy with their mostly barley and cereals. Nobody's into the canolas yet. Potatoes, I'm guessing they're going to be average. Kind of a weird year for some of these crops with that heat in July. So set, you'll get some plants that barely set anything and a few that look, pretty good. So not quite sure, the difference as you go down the rows. But, overall, I think good average crops for what we're covering for land. You don't have to go too far to find, to the west even, which is unusual. Some thinner soil, but even west of Edmonton, where they typically get more rain than we do, they just didn't buy a shower through that early part of the year, and some 50 bushel barley and some pretty poor crops. So I think we count our blessings here, and hopefully everybody ends up with something that they're happy with. But I know you don't have to go too far out of our immediate area to find guys that are going to be disappointed or struggling a bit.
Yeah, the old weather lottery, right?
It was, never more kind of scatter. We just didn't get a good general rain, and we came into the year with, not great subsoil moisture, and the better ground with deeper reserves kind of paid off, and catch a shower here or there. But again, late, like, man, I don't know, my corn. We've been lucky the last few years to get some high starch and early harvested corn silage, and this year, we're looking all the heat we can get here through September, and hopefully we dodge or don't get too cold and it can keep going. But yeah, just kind of putting up feed. Dairy seems to have turned a bit of a corner. A little more demand for milk coming, and milk cow prices have finally looks like there's supporting that demand as well. So maybe some better opportunities on that side of the farm as well. When you got so many things going on like I do, it's not common that it's flat to positive in most areas. So I hesitate a bit to say that it looks like, everything's holding its own with maybe a little bit of upside on most areas. Grain prices are what they are.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, we haven't chatted for a little bit. How many new businesses have you started in the meantime?
just still trying to get this, direct market beef and cheese thing. There's a lot to it. It's a long, slow process, and we keep hammering away. And I think, we're getting traction more and more, and that brand building is, I knew what I was getting into. I had the idea of building a brand. I didn't really know what I was getting into as far as just how much work and how much it is to tend to that one-on-one and keep these sales and accounts and push forward, and really just to strive, in both categories of beef and cheese, we're sticking to our guns with high quality product, and the volume is not going to compromise our quality. And basically, if you want to grow a business quicker, you have to shoot up the volume and get your margins like razor thin and approach, the larger retail outlets. And that's just not a model we've ever kind of strived to get after. So I guess it's slow and steady on that front, and a lot of fun because the customers appreciate the product that's there. So you just stay the course on that one. Yeah.
You talk to anybody that's doing direct from farm to consumer. I think everybody has, it is a grind, right? It just doesn't just sort of magically happen. Hey, I have product where, and the consumer says, where you been all my life. It takes some real dedication, commitment, and discipline. Like, I think just hearing what you've said about, quality versus price, volume, that whole equation, it does take discipline, because if, you can start in the high quality, but a lot of people get sort of drug or forced into other categories where they didn't intend to be, and discipline's a big part of it. You got to figure out who you are.
Well, and your customers and that end of things has been a little bit surprising. And I tell the story more one-on-one. This is maybe the first time, and I hope I relay it, correctly or accurately and not offensively in any avenue. But a lot of our customers that we see regularly and we enjoy are not the people who have a lot of money. So, they're out here and they're a regular customer, and they really appreciate the quality and the connection to the farm. And for them, a couple packs of cheese and a basket of maybe $30 or $40 is their special weekend, and it's what they save for and what they really that's a big highlight in their life versus, originally thinking maybe customers that were a little more affluent. Well, they're kind of busy spending bigger dollars or higher status items, flying somewhere, posting on social media, something that's more unattainable for the average person. So we have this high quality product, but linking that with people that appreciate it, that are a little more consistent customers and that really connect a little stronger than somebody who's out there with more dollars to spend, but looking for something that's going to give them a little more status from that spend.
Interesting. Well, Jeff, you're a smart dude, well read. What's your thoughts on what's happened this week with canola in China?
Oh, I don't know. Canola's disappointing to say the least. It's worrisome as far as a crop that used to contribute a lot to the bottom line on the farm, and now, a lot of red flags. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. On that big geopolitical side of things, I don't know what a guy can do at the farm level, right? Wish he hedged more. Scared on my side because it's burned me in the past. I don't know. Grain marketing is something that probably I haven't executed well, and I'm probably more confused on how to do that than I ever have been.
Well, each year's not the same. That's one of the problems, right? Just like growing the crop, marketing the crop it's the same humbling experience, right? And I used to kind of, hedging was always easy to do. I always just assumed there was going to be a crop, and I was right all the way along until 2022, and then that was extremely costly.
When we just had heat and didn't have a crop and the markets took off, and that spelled pretty heavy disaster. So now sitting back and waiting for crop to be in the bin and I guess ride it out at this point. There's a lot of market year left, and it seems like hopefully it isn't too far off the bottom, or it's found the bottom despite any of these challenges that keep popping up here and there. But I don't know. I don't see the world growing a massive crop. Like, there's got to be some opportunities in some holes somewhere. We grew some non-GMO canola, so I'm kind of holding out on that, hoping Europe, there's maybe some opportunities to move some, smaller quantities or producer cars into Europe with the non-GMO stuff. So yeah, I don't know, just trying to kind of find my way on all of those things.
Everybody has different thoughts on it. And I remember I was giving a speech in Saskatoon back in the wintertime, and somebody had, during the Q&A period, had brought up, non-GMO canola to Europe, and they had said, just on, their belief was they would not sign some of the paperwork that they were being asked to sign. Do you have, has that come up on your farm, that discussion? Is it an issue for you, or, hey, I'm getting a good price, sign it, let's get it out of here?
Generally, I can speak to a lot of trepidation on my side, and I can't speak specifically because I have non-GMO canola. I haven't actually sold any under a contract that way. But man, neighbors around here that I would think would be as well read or paying as much attention, and maybe I'm just off on a little bit of my own on that one. But just look at the contract you have to sign to sell regular grain. It strikes me as, man, if something goes sideways, I think it's inevitable that at some point you're going to see some large farms or some large players get absolutely burned, and I don't know what that looks like because of what we're signing. On a general grain delivery contract, it's out there, and even the advice on timing of glyphosate on pre-harvest. I think we're not as narrow on that as we need to be for what we're signing on documentation on any contract. I think that's going to be a big issue. I think that's something you guys will have a lot of opinions on, and can probably maybe lead the way a little bit, Shaun, on that one, because I don't know. Those contracts scare me, and yeah, what are the options, right? You basically deliver and hopefully everything you've done aligns, but they're pretty open-ended compared to where they used to be.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that share some of those concerns for sure, Jeff. Hey, all the best to you during harvest. I'll let you get back to it. I know you're out there baling. So thanks so much for joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, we'll be right back with more of the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Apply anhydrous ammonia and protect your application earlier than normal this fall. Defend against potential losses and protect your bottom line with Centuro Nitrogen Stabilizer. Patented active ingredient pronitridine offers agronomically effective protection where it matters most, below ground. Easy to handle Centuro is also non-corrosive for fewer worries about downtime or equipment damage. Start early with Centuro as part of your nitrogen management plan. Contact your local retailer or visit centuro.ca for more information today.
RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lindsay Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. And we finish up this week's Farmer Rapid Fire in Northwest Saskatchewan in the Battlefords, and we're talking to Jenna Gregoire. Hey, Jenna, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Really good. And of course, Jenna is a Pioneer area agronomist in the Battleford area. So I guess, Jenna, let's start off talking about some of the crop conditions. And of course, we're into harvest. What have you been hearing from customers and some of the visits to the combine you've been making?
I've been hearing kind of everything under the sun. A lot of guys thought that the crop looked really good. So there was a lot of hope that, with all that rain we had in June, that it was going to equate to yield in September. But It's kind of the opposite thing's been happening. So those 3 weeks of intense heat that hit us in July, and I mean intense heat, like it was heat warning for 3 weeks solid. They really kind of set the illusion that the crop looked good, but there's not as much in the crop as the combines start rolling. So hopefully maybe there's some change as things progress, but so far the yields that have been coming off have been anywhere from about 25 to 35 on canola, and then a couple on the higher end at 40. But I would say 40 is kind of a bang up crop this year, all things considered.
And for those of you that are listening that are outside the canola growing region, like we're shooting for sure 50 above, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not uncommon for Northwest Sask to be getting 60, 65, even some 70s consistently. If it was a normal growing year. And what's normal these days? I don't know. Nothing seems to be normal in the last 5 years, but I would say on average that those yields would be considered normal.
One of my concerns has been, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, there is positive things to this growing season too, but one of the things I'm concerned about is we're getting into the canola that was seeded relatively earlier. What do the yields look like when we get to the back end? We were a little bit later getting it into the field, getting it established. It really was hit by that July heat during flowering. That's what I'm a little bit nervous about. I hope I'm wrong. I actually hope we maintain these levels now. If that's my biggest concern.
Yeah, that's a whole different mixed bag, right? I mean, you seed early and you submit yourself to, an early frost and those bugs
flea beetles.
At early staging. Yeah. Yes, exactly. But kind of in the Northwest, especially, what I've been seeing this year is that stuff that was seeded early had the opportunity to beat some of the heat. But then I also seen stuff seeded in the South, and by South, I mean, south of Kindersley, stuff seeded on the later side of things. It kind of surpassed the heat that came a little bit. So in the North, I think early seeded stuff is going to win. In the South, I think there's a chance that maybe some of the later seeded stuff might actually pull forward. But again, that's the importance of replicating trials and making sure that there's a lot of different seeding dates in the book just to see, what did produce the highest canola this year.
Well, and here's the reality. When you're thinking about, okay, do I go today or don't I go when it comes to seeding time, you don't know what kind of a year's in front of you. And you're trying to make the best educated decision that you possibly can based on, past number of years of experience or what possibly is expected from weather forecasters for the year. But it's still, you don't know. Some of those expectations aren't perfect. You mentioned trials. And during the commercial break, we were talking about some of the how prolific just the trials that Pioneer's doing in your area are. The importance of these trials and what we're trying to find out. Talk about that.
Oh, yeah. I in my area alone, I have just under 50 trials. So that's 50 canola trials spread across everywhere from, Meadow Lake to the Alberta border and then all the way down in Brock, Saskatchewan, right? So the importance of these is just making sure, like you had said, different seeding dates, different growing conditions, different soil types, and we want to make sure that these are all replicated so that when somebody in Swift Current calls me up and said, hey, what was the highest yielding hybrid that you've seen in the South? I can give them localized data to be able to better equip me with an answer for them, as opposed to, somebody in Spiritwood saying, well, what was the best hybrid up here? Because I can almost guarantee you what was the highest yielding hybrid in Spiritwood is not going to be the highest yielding hybrid down in Swift Current. So just the importance of being able to see it in all these different growing conditions, I think just really equips us to better help our farmers when they're trying to make those decisions. Because of course, everybody wants to know, what's the hybrid that I need to get in October when everything's coming right off the combine. And that might be a totally different situation or a different growing condition a whole year from now, right? So
yeah, we're into that decision-making window very shortly here. Very quick.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It goes fast. Can you believe we're preparing for 2025 already? And, it's barely September.
I know. It hurts my head.
Yeah. Mine too.
But there has been some good things happen this year too. Like we're dealing with disappointing yields compared to where we were mid-June, beginning of June. I think that's something that is held with us. Obviously, the commodity market has pulled back. We've talked to our farmers this week about that and in past weeks. But we're not like 21, right? Remember 2021? Right. That's different.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, I think overall from a yield perspective, there is some disappointment out there, and Mother Nature could have cooperated just a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I honestly think in a very weird way, and I don't want to say this very loudly, but that heat that we got did speed things up. You know, that rain and coolness in June really prolonged the maturity of stuff. And if we wouldn't have had that heat, I mean, we might be trying to fight with frosts before we're able to get it off too. So in a weird way, that heat kind of did help things move along so that we're actually able to get it off and put it in the bin before any major frost event comes too. So
yeah. So in your role right now, what are the next, like your customers are obviously out trying to get the crop in the bin. So what does your next couple weeks look like?
So my next couple weeks is going out to all these trials, assessing everything, seeing what disease or if there is disease out there, checking crop stands. It's easy to check, you know, after it's been swathed or harvested off to see what the end crop stand was there. And then number one priority is getting all that yield data in so that I can compile it and see, you know, what was the overall winner and what variability was there from the north to the south. And just trying to give our reps as much information as possible with all the yield data that's coming in.
Great stuff. Well, Jenna, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Farm Rapid Fire. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Shaun. Always love it on here.
If you do have any feedback here today based on what you heard from our farmers, we would love to hear from you. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find Real Agriculture across all the different social media platforms. You're also more than welcome to call the Real Ag feedback line. It's really easy. You dial 855-776-6147. You press the number 3 and you leave me a message. You don't have to come on the show live. You just leave me a message. I would love to hear from more of the audience. Hey, what's your feedback? Do you think Canada's made a mistake here on these EV tariffs? Do you think there should be compensation to farmers for the market loss? What do you think needs to happen? Change in strategy, stick with it. It's for the betterment of the Canadian auto sector, better for jobs. What are your thoughts and what needs to happen to help out farmers in this situation? You can provide me with all that feedback by all the ways I just told you. Okay, thanks everybody for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio. And today's show, of course, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Go to pioneer.com/Canada to find out more. Cheers, everybody.